Welcome to Diplomatic Channel. On the program this week, world leaders are waking up to the reality of the threat posed by ISIS, resulting into a security meeting held by EU foreign ministers. While the US President Barack Obama, UK Prime Minister David Cameron held another meeting putting the issue of terrorism on the front burner. Our focus this week is on the quest for statehood in Palestine and how Nigeria abstaining from a major vote in the UN Security Council may affect Nigeria's relations with the US, Palestine and Israel. I am Amarachi Ubani. Diplomatic Channel will be right back. Welcome back. Western countries are still reeling from the aftermath of the attacks in Paris. There's fear that ISIS militants could very easily find their way in under various guises, and so the need to stem any impending attack. During the week, foreign ministers from EU and Arab countries met in Brussels to discuss new strategies for checkmating the group.
The meeting was indeed a crucial one. Leaders agreed to counter radical Muslims returning from Syria and Iraq with a better strategy, but will not be making new laws as a result of the attacks in France.
We will all be determined to do what is necessary to keep Europe safe from the terrorist threat. We'll be talking about the challenge of extreme Islamism today and how we deal in our counter-terrorist response with it. And we'll be looking at some of the specific measures that will help to keep us safe, like passenger name records within Europe.
The Belgian Foreign Minister Didier Reynders suggested the need to establish a passenger name record.
The European Parliament will change its attitude in that regard and authorize the setting up of a PNR, that's the passenger name record, at a European level and also in collaboration with other partners such as the United States and Canada. The approach above all is really this exchange of information. We showed it in the operations which took place in Belgium these past few days. We must exchange information in Europe and outside of Europe to have a real follow-up to be able to prevent sudden acts which could be committed on our territory.
Their agreements come as the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini urged greater cooperation with the Arab world to combat the threat of radical Islam.
I've always said it has to be underlined that it is not an issue between Europe or the West and Islam. Terrorism and terrorist attacks are targeting most of all Muslims in the world. So we need an alliance, we need a dialogue there to face the issue together, and we also need to take full responsibility for what we do and what we say, and I think that respect is also one of the main core values of the European Union, and drawing the line between the freedom and respect has always been one of the main philosophical even dilemma, but I think we need to look at that very carefully in this.
Ministers will lay the groundwork for a string of meetings culminating into an European Union Leaders Summit on February 12 to 13 in Brussels to set out the bloc strategy to deal with Muslims heading to Middle East war zones or returning radicalized from the region.
Despite criticism over its absence at the Million-Man Unity March they held the week of the attacks in Paris, the United States says it is committed to helping Paris seek justice for them. US President Barack Obama and British Prime Minister David Cameron both met last week to discuss various world security challenges.
Much of our discussion obviously focused on the continuing threat of terrorism. And in the wake of the vicious attacks in Paris, as well as the news surfacing out of Belgium today, we continue to stand unequivocally, not only with our French friends and allies, but with also all of our partners who are dealing with this scourge. I know David joins me when I say that we will continue to do everything in our power to help France seek the justice that is needed, and that all our countries are working together seamlessly to prevent attacks and to defeat these terrorist networks. And David and I agree that we need to keep stepping up. With regard to security, American-British unity is enabling us to meet challenges in Europe and beyond. We agree on the need to maintain strong sanctions against Russia until it ends its aggression in Ukraine, and on the need to support Ukraine as it implements important economic and democratic reforms. We agree that the international community needs to remain united as we seek a comprehensive diplomatic solution to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And I'd add that additional sanctions on Iran at this time would undermine that international unity and set back our chances for a diplomatic solution.
On Iran, we remain absolutely committed to ensuring that Iran cannot develop a nuclear weapon. The best way to achieve that now is to create the space for negotiations to succeed. We should not impose further sanctions now. That would be counterproductive, and it could put at risk the valuable international unity that has been so crucial to our approach. We agreed that 2015 should be a pivotal year for an ambitious and comprehensive EU-US trade deal, which could benefit the average household in Britain by £400 a year. The UK is now the top destination for American foreign investment, with 500 projects last year providing 32,000 jobs. And America is the UK's biggest trade partner, with exports worth nearly £90 billion. We want to build on this, so our message on the economy today is simple. We are going to stick to the course, because seeing through our economic plans is the only sustainable way to create jobs, to raise living standards, and to secure a better future for hard-working people.
The U.S. president reiterated his commitments during his State of the Union address on Wednesday, as the VOA's Jeff Selden reports.
In the skies over the Middle East, U.S. and allied warplanes engage in a steady bombardment of the Islamic State. In his address to the nation, President Obama said the U.S. is stopping the group's advance, and he took aim at a problem that has gone global.
We will continue to hunt down terrorists and dismantle their networks, and we reserve the right to act unilaterally, as we have done relentlessly since I took office, to take out terrorists who pose a direct threat to us and our allies.
Analysts agree the U.S. has shown it can find and hit terrorists where they hide. Yet even in the face of U.S. airstrikes, the Islamic State has refused to back down and continues to parade hostages it threatens to kill. David Gardenstein-Ross at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies isn't surprised by the group's resilience.
Overall, the threat of violent non-state actors committed to a jihadist ideology has massively increased over the course of the past 4 years. We're not moving in the right direction.
Part of that, he says, stems from a consistent choice by the Obama administration.
A lot of the mistakes that have been made have been when they have preferred democratic revolution over stability. In particular, the decision to go into Libya has been a very costly decision from the perspective of jihadist groups.
During the Arab Spring revolts, President Obama said the U.S. welcomed change that advanced self-determination and opportunity in the face of what he called the raw power of the dictator. Yet, U.S. military officials now believe there are a couple of hundred Islamic State fighters training at camps in eastern Libya. Other groups are also using Libya to rest their fighters, make connections, and acquire weapons. Even in places where the U.S. saw progress, like Yemen, the situation can change quickly. The latest instability there raising concerns about al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, linked now to the terror attacks in Paris and the threats of foreign fighters. Terror analyst Max Abrams via Skype.
We have an unknown number of people with loose connections to al-Qaeda and to Islamic State. And I think that these kinds of attacks that we saw in France are going to be on the rise.
U.S. intelligence officials say of the estimated 19,000 foreign fighters that have flown into Syria and Iraq, at least 1/3 are from the Middle East and North Africa. But they also worry about a growing number, at least 3,400, that in some cases have been coming and going from Western countries, in a global battle some analysts say is headed in the wrong direction.
When we come back after the break, tensions between Israel and her neighbor Palestine goes further south. Please join us again.